All right, so we are first going to call to order the Liquor Commissioners meeting at 5:34. And this is for the purpose of reviewing and approving the liquor license renewal applications that we have received for the general store, a second class application, Next Stage, a first class application, and the Putney Food Co-op, a second class application. And I'm sure in your agendas it says the Gleanery, but the Gleanery is not in at this time. Oh, we lost Josh.
No, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm looking on my computer at the same time, so I'll disappear.
Okay. So, I would entertain a motion to approve each of these as presented.
So moved.
And seconded.
And we can do that as a slate because I said the second
Yes.
person. Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Are there any outstanding issues on any of these properties that we're concerned about, Karen? i.e. utilities or taxes or anything?
No.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and hearing no abstentions, this has passed, or no. Okay, and then I just sign these and they can come in later and sign them.
Yeah, but you should make a motion.
Okay, so we need a motion to, where was the language on that?
To have Laura sign now and then,
So we need a motion in order for me to sign now and the two of you to come in and sign as you can.
So moved.
Okay,
And seconded.
that was easy.
okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. So it's been passed.
So you can adjourn that.
Okay, so we are going to adjourn the Liquor Commissioners meeting at 5:36. And now we are going to call to order the Putney Town Select Board meeting at 5:37. And first on our agenda is, are there any adjustments to the agenda?
There's one, we will have an executive session. And when we get down there, we'll make the motion.
Okay. And then we have minutes, and there's another adjustment to the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the emergency meetings 15th, 16th, and 19th of March. So I would entertain a motion to approve each of the minutes.
So moved.
Okay.
And seconded.
So, and hearing, is there any discussion?
Any corrections or?
Any corrections? Then, hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So it's been moved. Do we need the same motion for me to sign the minutes? Do we have to do that every time I sign something, or can we do a slate of like?
Yeah, David, when he,
Well,
David will be coming in to sign anyway.
Oh, it's David's sig, that's right.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Okay. Public comment on items not on the agenda. So we're gonna skip that, tabling that, and then we have select board items. The emergency management director is going to report on coronavirus. Tom, are you with us still?
Yep, I am.
Great. Can you give us a report?
Yep, absolutely. And actually, I'll do this like I have in the past. Kind of break this up into two different sections. First, department specific. obviously every day, planning is going on, for different things as they come up. We're constantly reviewing and modifying plans, policies, procedures that have been in place and modifying those, as we need to based upon guidance that we receive from the state, and from the hospital, in some circumstances. So that's ongoing. At this point, we're back to what we consider full staffing in that we had a couple of folks that were out ill, had absolutely nothing to do with the virus. They were just out ill, and per protocol and policy, they were asked not to be with us during that time frame. Both of them are back to normal, and they're back with us. So that's a good thing right now. Obviously, we continue to work closely with other departments, other agencies in the region, on both sides of the Connecticut River. A lot of planning is going on as far as not only the virus, but also how we're gonna, should things worsen for us, all of us, in that we lose people, how we're gonna back each other up, what large scale responses are gonna look like, things like that. So that's all in play. We all understand that at this point we're living and operating under new rules and so on and so forth. And we're gonna continue to do what we always do as long as we're able to. So with that being said, I'll go over this a little more in depth here in a moment, but we're being told and we understand anyway, aside from that, that our responses are likely gonna transition from very few responses region-wide to we're gonna become very busy and potentially overwhelmed at times, as things continue. One thing that we know, it's already starting to take place here. Mental health issues are going to start to come into play on the part of citizens. We're in talks with HCRS. We're in talks with the hospital. We're in talk with some specific counselors that I deal with on a very regular basis, to see how we can best take care of folks as we begin to work with them. So those are things as far as the department goes. Any questions on any of that?
Is the hotline already established?
What hotline?
There was a hotline referenced in one of our public health notices, and a phone number was given that was going to be a hotline for people to call into. So I'm assuming that's just your regular number, and here, Karen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And we today there was definitely an uptick in the number of calls that we've gotten and are receiving. Mm-hmm. And I know that's going to continue over at least the next several days. So.
Yeah. That was my next question, was how many calls are you getting on average?
Today we had, with the exception of what's waiting on our phones, we had 28.
And are you able to answer all of those calls and direct
right
people?
Right now, yes, and not necessarily me alone.
Mm-hmm.
A few other folks have been in helping me do other things and other projects. Mm-hmm. And they're addressing some of those as well.
And those, Tom, are primarily just inquiries, or what's the nature of them?
Inquiries, requests for welfare checks, requests for guidance, things like that.
Yeah.
Great.
So I'll transition into the larger scope of things. Just a couple things that I think we need to put out again, in writing, and certainly, all of us need to be on the same page with all of this. At this point, with things transitioning, on a large scale, for anyone, any of the citizens anywhere, for anyone that has not taken this pandemic seriously yet, and have not adhered to guidance that's been put across, as of now, they need to begin to take this seriously. We had a conference call earlier today with the state EOC. There were many reps there from different agencies, and what we're being told is all of us in the region, all of us in the state, need to plan for a significant uptick in this disease, in positive test results. And the only way to prevent dramatic spread of this disease is to follow the guidance that's being provided to us and adhere to it. And again, that all comes down to the very simple basics that have been put across over and over. Social distancing, now with all the, adhere to all the directives that have come out of the governor's office. I know that the state, the governor's office, every agency of the state, they're relying on, as far as enforcement's concerned, they're relying on self-compliance. They're relying on all of us as citizens doing what's asked of us. First off, that needs to be put out. People need to understand. Again, if they haven't taken this seriously, they need to start doing that now. Along with that, we clearly understand and recognize and understand and appreciate that fear factors are up, people's fears are increasing, people's concerns are increasing. There's still some confusion out there. We understand that, we respect it, we appreciate it. But what everybody needs to do, and really within the town of Putney, it starts with us being the select board, the town manager, department heads. We need to just relax and stay calm. And just concentrate on what we need to do, get it done, and just keep going. If people see us start to panic and us start to do things that are not necessarily routine, then obviously that's going to drive the fear up on their part, and it's going to drive the confusions up. Obviously, and this has been the case right from the start of this within the state of Vermont. We're facing new unknowns every single day. But with experience levels within different town governments, different services, again, both sides of the river, different experience, various experience levels, training, education levels, so on and so forth. We're actually getting through this very, very well, and that's from the state level all the way down to the individual municipalities and the individual services. So things are good. We just need to keep things in check as necessary. Understand that all this is new. All this is again, there are definite unknowns that we're dealing with every single day.
Uh-oh.
You still there with us, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So it sounded like you glitched out for a second.
Okay.
Was that it for you?
Nope.
Okay.
I just paused to see if there were any questions pertaining to any of that or no.
Thank you for that. I'm really glad that you put out such a strong statement on folks following guidance and talking about us setting an example. Do you have any concerns with anything that we've done so far? Is there anything that we can improve on?
No. I think one thing that we need to do, and I think the citizens need to hear this from us, is, especially today, I know several of us were confronted with or received information about what citizens might perceive as known positive cases within the town of Putney. People asking why perhaps we as emergency services, we as town officials don't know where the specifics on people, whether they're being monitored by the state or if they've tested positive. People need to understand very, very clearly, and from my perspective, I would hope this is not to sound harsh, but I would hope this is the last time that we need to talk about it. The reality is, number one, we have not known, we will not know, and we cannot know by federal law who these folks are and where they are. And that's just simply the plain and simple of it. We're not going to know. So to counter that, what we do and what we do as an emergency service every single day of the week anyway is we protect ourselves. With this virus specifically, we're being given a lot of very good guidance on how to protect ourselves above and beyond what our normal limits are. And we're adhering to that. Again, when I talked earlier about policy and procedure changes, that's all being done to incorporate all of the guidance that we're being given. We are not doing things today regarding any of our responses the way we did 2 weeks ago, and that may become more constricted as we move forward. But the reality is, we can't know, we won't know who folks are, where they are, and that's just the way it is. So if, as citizens make contact with us and try to explain to us or provide us with information, we cannot get involved with third-hand, fourth-hand, fifth-hand information. And legally, there's no true way for me to even follow up on things. It's totally illegal and inappropriate. If we hear of something, it's totally illegal and inappropriate for me to approach those folks and ask them any questions. Not that I would necessarily do that anyways. So I think it's important for the citizens to understand. I know that and I certainly appreciate that they think they're trying to help us. But everybody just needs to understand that there are ways we will find out for certain until we make contact with individuals directly. There's nothing we're going to do. We're not going to pay attention to what people tell us about third and fourth parties, and that's just the way it is.
I think one thing, and I'm not sure how we would go about this, but I've heard statements to the effect that people who are declaring themselves positive should be looked at as heroes in this situation because they are making that information public in a way that's helpful. And I think that in any way we can message that there should be no stigma attached to this. I mean, there's nothing bad about having coronavirus other than it puts you and others at risk for being sick. But, as we are all aware, the fatality rate is, even though it's much more significant than the flu, it's still relatively low. The contagion rate is high. So most people who get it are going to be just fine, but those people particularly need to stay home and really pay attention. I mean, everybody needs to pay attention to the stay-at-home order, but anybody who tests positive should be thoroughly encouraged to do that. And, you know, my personal opinion is if people are comfortable letting others around them know that, that should be welcome, not shunned.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I'm actually glad you brought that up. If there are citizens of Putney who are either being monitored by the state of Vermont Health Department or have tested positive, if they feel comfortable in declaring that to us, please call me at the fire department or on my cell phone for that matter and let me know. Just like anything else we know about citizens, everything's confidential.
Right.
People can rest assured of that. If they choose to declare to us, that's fine, and actually it would be appreciated. But again, my big thing there was very simply, we can't pay attention to, and people need to understand we can't pay attention to third, fourth, fifth-hand information.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing about that's important to acknowledge, Tom, and I know this goes without saying, but for anybody listening, you will not respond differently. I mean, your response to a home that has somebody positive with coronavirus or COVID-19 will be just as prompt and thorough as responding anywhere else. You may respond a little bit differently as far as your personal equipment if you're aware that somebody in the house is positive, but I would assume that you are at this stage more or less assuming any call you go on that there's a possibility or likelihood that somebody is positive. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Again, we're gonna, for all things being equal, for as long as we're able to, we're still gonna be responding normally, in the broad sense to every single call for service we get. The difference in those responses will be some specific actions that we take no matter, in today's world, no matter what the call, whether it's a rescue call, a motor vehicle crash, or a fire for that matter. People will see us doing things differently, but as far as the response itself is concerned, it's going to be no different.
The best thing that I think I was taught in the beginning of this is act like you have it and can give it to everyone you come into contact with, and act like everybody around you has it and could give it to you, and that you're going to give it to your grandma and she's going to die. So, and that maybe that's a little extreme, but it's the reality of this is act like you can be a vector and anybody around you could be a vector, and that it could cause harm to people that you really care about. So thank you, Tom.
Okay. I'll just real quick above and beyond that, I'm staying in close touch with Hannah at the food shelf. Mm-hmm. We've done some different things just today, and talked about some different things that we're actually gonna put pen to paper on tonight and tomorrow regarding some services that we're gonna ramp up to possibly provide. And I know Hannah, I forwarded her a great deal of information today, and she's actually going to be reaching out to some different folks in town to talk about some possible assistance that we can all provide to them. So Hannah and all the folks at the food shelf, for that matter, have been great. And there's no doubt that as we move forward, the list of volunteer folks that they have in place, they're going to be a huge asset to us as well.
Tom, in the mutual aid discussion, the community mutual aid project discussion, the protocols for food that you are going to be putting in place that will be passed along to the food shelf, they were interested if that would impact the safety guide that they made.
Hannah and I are going to be talking. We talked a little bit about that today. I'm going to be doing some work tonight to kind of begin to address that, and then we're going to chat again tomorrow.
Okay. I know they were gearing up to try and send that safety guide out tomorrow, I believe. So I can ask them to hang in there for
Okay.
a moment. And maybe you and I can catch up separately about this.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So,
Tom, I'm just wondering, I don't know whether you know the answer to this and or if there is a correct answer at this moment, but it would be my assumption that anybody who tests positive would be reportable and therefore by default be being monitored by the state. Would you agree with that or not?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So just to reassure people, in general, anybody who has test positive, the state is aware of that, and they are, I mean, I don't know what monitoring looks like right now. I assume it's sort of different depending on risk category, but anybody who tests positive, the state is aware of them.
That's right. In addition to that, the state does a thorough screening of those individuals to include a detailed listing of who they've come in contact with, where those contacts were, their travel history, so on and so forth, so that as best possible, every individual who has been in contact with that positive is contacted, evaluated, screened, and if deemed necessary, they're tested.
Tom, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Great. We had talked a little bit earlier about possible testing for your first responders, and you said you were going to ask questions in your meeting this afternoon. I didn't know if you had any answers to that.
Actually, that question I did not ask in our meeting. I made a couple phone calls very shortly after you raised those questions to a different group, and the answers very simply were no, we won't be provided with testing, very simply because there aren't enough test kits available. Any test kits that exist are being held pretty much under lock and key everywhere that they're at for hospitals and physician testing. Along with that, it was mentioned, and I hadn't thought of it this way, but it was brought up with the PPE requirements that are in place in order for a test to be conducted. With the shortage of PPE everywhere across the country, if anyone started to just randomly test, those PPE stocks would be depleted immediately, almost.
can you tell me what PPE stands for?
Yep, personal protective equipment.
Okay, thank
So
you.
in this case, all the gloves, the N95 masks, the face shields, the gowns, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Are you doing any kind of active monitoring of your staff and volunteers to just monitor their health from a day-to-day basis?
Yep. I'm in close contact pretty much every day with a number of folks, right from the outset of this, and there have been reminders put out on top of that. Anyone who is feeling ill, to contact me immediately, and folks have done that, so it's all good. And people know too, if they are feeling ill to any extent, whether things progress and they get tested or not, then we don't want them here. The goal being, we need to keep ourselves as healthy as we can for as long as we can.
Okay, thank you. Some questions came up from constituents asking about the potential of the town doing robocalls to give, I don't know, like state of the town kind of addresses. And I don't know if that's more of a question for Karen or if that's more of a question for you. I'm sure I know we have the emergency system, but do we have a system in place that could do robocalls to maybe support the mental health of folks and get information out there for people that maybe don't use the internet as well or as often or have access to it?
To the best of my knowledge, there's nothing that exists in town on the municipal level for us to perform that robocall, so to speak. I think what might be the best is, and again, unfortunately, society is so reliant upon technology, and we always either forget and or very bluntly ignore the fact that there is still quite a population out there that doesn't use technology. So what I was going to say was perhaps we would be best suited to more frequently now and on a very set basis put out bulletins like we've been doing, except again just more frequently in set times. Again, that still doesn't capture those folks that don't have internet access. So I'm not sure how to capture those folks across the board, honestly. Aside that, I guess that's my answer, for my opinion.
Laura, I don't know what group might do something like this, but we probably could recruit volunteers if there were people who felt they wanted a phone call every X number of days or whatever. We could probably have volunteers do that. I mean, in our next public notice, we could potentially say, if you would like a phone call on a regular basis, please contact so-and-so and let them know that, or something along those lines, and we could create a phone tree of sorts. But I think that if there are people who are concerned that they're alone and they don't know what's going on, we can probably come up with folks to reach out to them pretty regularly, I would think.
And I think that that's much of the work. I know from sitting in on many meetings, that's much of the work that the assistance group is trying to do at this time in the information that they're gathering is connect people via phone, ideally, and especially people that are not able to help in any other way and want an outlet to support neighbors. So I think that that's actually already actively happening in our community. It was just one of the many questions that have come up.
So it might be, if we're going to put out a public notice, it might be worth including a phone number. If you want to be a list of people who are contacted, please let it go at.
So, yeah, and that's definitely something we should discuss, and we should discuss whether or not we bring that to the mutual aid group as something that they're including, asking them if that's something that they want to keep going forward with, because they've been doing a really, really excellent work at gathering information from the community about needs. And I know Tom has access to it. I don't know if he's had a chance to look at it. I'm sure in his world of many different moving pieces right now, that may not be the first priority, but and Karen has access to it as well. And you were able to see through an email that I sent information without names. I think at that point we had like 80 people gathered, and now last I knew they were well over 100. So it is working. People are subscribing, and hopefully that can be a component, since that system's already built.
And I was, Laura, that they are documenting well things they do. I mean,
Amazing.
if they aren't, they should be. I mean, even if it's just a note to say, this phone number was called at such and such time. Anything just so that there's a way of tracking it if we need to and want to.
So you're saying I know the organizers are documenting incredibly well all of the work that they're doing, but once the system gets going and actually responding to people, you're hoping that the people that are responding will be documenting well?
No, the people making the calls. I mean, my concern would be essentially whoever's organizing this needs to have a certain level of QA. So for example, documenting that such and such citizen was called on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Oh, wait a minute. How come they didn't get a call Friday? I don't know how possible that is, but I think as much as they can, that's probably a good idea. Just to, if things get missed, somebody will know,
And I'm not sure if the way that they're building this system would accommodate that, because what they're looking at is neighbors helping neighbors. So
Right.
I think what they're looking at is actually releasing control of it from the organizers and putting it in the hands of the neighbors that are helping neighbors, just giving them best guidance, best practices. But maybe I could suggest to them that when you're giving that best guidance, you suggest that they keep a log of their activities.
Right.
Something like that. And it may not be practical or practicable, but I think it wouldn't be a bad idea if possible.
Yeah.
Laura?
Yes.
And certainly, Josh, I truly respect and applaud those thoughts and comments, and I think that would truly be a good way to reach and stay in contact with people. The reservations that I have surround, and please nobody take this the wrong way, surround a group of folks that aren't aware of everything they're going to need to be aware of. If we start making phone calls to folks, as this progresses, there are going to be a lot of different things that we're going to hear. There are going to be a lot of different things that we're told. There are going to be a lot of different things that we need to be able to cue in on as a discussion is going on, even related to background noise. And there will have to be a very high level of confidentiality. What I might, and so I think two things. One is we need to not rush into something like that. However, understand that if we truly want to do this, we need to start it up sooner rather than later. And I would submit that, and we can get this done. That this could happen if the folks wanted to collect information for us. We can do that right here out of the fire department.
You can make
and
calls.
It would not increase my workload at all. But we have people that could do that, and that project, if you will, would be pretty successful.
Yeah, I think what I was referring to, Tom, I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree 100%. I think that it would be, from my perspective, as simple as, an X in a contact made box. That it's just some way of knowing, and not with detail at all, not responding to questions, anything else, but just for continuity. And so again, that may not be possible, but no, I absolutely agree. That group should not be responding in any way that it's your responsibility. But again, if you get to day 5 and no contact is made, who knows Like, what do you do with that information?
Let me give you a for instance. In within this town, everywhere in this town, this type of a situation is reality. If somebody with no education, no training, no idea what they're getting into, they just want to make a phone call to make sure that people are okay. When that phone call is made, there's again, as things progress, as things get more stressful for folks, for the citizens, number one, it won't be as straightforward as, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need any assistance with anything? It's going to get a lot more detailed, a lot more in depth with that, because the individual is going to drive that conversation. Not the folks that are making that phone call. The folks that are receiving that phone call are going to drive that conversation.
Yeah, their needs.
So within that, we come in contact with people on a very, very regular basis, whether it's in person or on the phone. I can just note a change in their tone of voice or a change in their response during a conversation, and I know there's something going on, and it would be wise for us to make direct contact with them. Whereas other people wouldn't even begin to pick up on something like that.
That's true. Do you feel like you can cover every citizen in Putney, though? I mean, I guess, and that wasn't meant to be snarky at all.
It would not, for the most part, it would not be me personally.
Yeah.
But out of the fire department, yes, we could. If we had that information, if we had the information made available to us, who wanted to be contacted and on what frequency, then yes, that could be done and would be done.
Okay. So I have a question for you, Tom, because this group is very seriously considering going to a public format, and they have, so they're considering changing from a survey and putting and checking in with everybody that has participated in this survey to make sure that they're okay with this, and putting it into a spreadsheet publicly so people can just connect with each other easily. How do you feel about that?
I mean, at that point, I think it's a different scenario in that that's just connecting people for general conversation.
It's not just for conversation. It's based on needs and willingness to support needs. So it could be, I am going through chemotherapy and I need rides to the hospital. And the guidance sheets that I sent you had kind of scenarios for each type of thing, how you would transport somebody in your car, obviously that you're doing it at your own risk. And I feel like, having read the guidance that they've come up with over and over again, they've done a really good job, and they've even changed it. I think I've sent you 3 different iterations of it. But I'm just, would you be comfortable with that? Because it feels like to me that as this thing evolves and changes, and we all have to evolve and change with it, a public format like that may be the most sustainable format for the organizers, because if the organizers get sick, they can't really organize anymore, and they have to have backup on that. And this allows it just to be a living document that people enter, need, and connect with other people.
This may have already been addressed in how they're managing this, but I would be concerned about privacy issues with that.
They have talked about that extensively, and what they're doing is creating accommodations for people that are concerned about privacy, so that they wouldn't be either their name wouldn't be listed in the public format, only their need or their desire to serve, and then they would be connected privately through a coordinator, or they wouldn't be listed at all, and the coordinator would try to connect them. That's my understanding of it. It's an evolving thing, so I may not be up to date on every aspect of it at this point. I wasn't able to sit on on all of today's meeting, but they've been meeting every day and talking in depth about these things and looking at models throughout the state. And it seems like this model is the one that is working most effectively at this point within communities to kind of create these little neighborhood pods where neighbors can say, oh, I didn't know that person 3 doors up the road from me needed this thing. And I can do that. And now I have a direction on how to do that as safely as possible, because obviously we can't ensure safety for everyone in this. You know, it is at their own risk.
Right. Again, I truly do appreciate everyone's desire to help. I get that and I appreciate it. However, again, just as simple as following the directives that are coming down to us from the state, that type of function goes directly against the most recent directives that came down. So I guess, and certainly don't take this wrong. At the end of the day, I personally and professionally can't sit here and say, yes, I think these are good ideas. I think these things are appropriate to happen. Because I don't. Again, like I said at the outset, anyone who has not taken this seriously and has not heeded the suggestions, guidance / directives that have come down, we need to start that, and everybody needs to do that. If we say to a group of folks that and again, I understand their hearts are in the right place, their efforts are greatly appreciated, but if we as a municipality say, yes, we think, we applaud you, we think you're going in the right direction, we think this, and we whether we say we approve or not, at that point we as the municipality are sanctioning their activities.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I think we would be doing the absolute opposite of what is required of us.
So,
Can I ask you a question?
I'm sorry, go ahead, David.
If you do handle all the calls through the fire department, going back just a little bit, Laura, if you do handle all the calls through the fire department, and I understand that you want people who are trained in handling those kind of calls, you do have volunteer people who might be able to handle them if the calls get too much, people that you would trust would be able to, as using your example, hear the change in the tone of the voice, or be able to pick up on a need that the person who's being called might have and that might not be direct about it. Do you have people that could support you in that?
Yes.
Do you have a list of those people?
I can put the list together. Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you.
I mean, I think, one thing we need to consider is the fact that, I totally hear what you're saying, Tom, and I think it's very important, and maybe this is that statement, that we as a town don't sanction this, but it's going to happen whether we sanction it or not. So I guess my initially bringing this up is and maybe we should just stay out of it, but my concern is that because this is going to happen anyway, and because they aren't professionals, that there are going to be blind spots in it. And so, should we take any role in advising to try and avoid that, or should we just make the blanket statement that this should really be handled by the fire department, knowing full well that it's going to happen regardless of what we say? I mean, I think, I don't know. I'm not sure what the balance is there. I don't disagree with you at all, and I definitely understand and recognize the the possible downside of this. But again, it's already happening. So,
Yeah.
Right, exactly, and to a certain degree, it will continue to happen. I mean, we get that. That's obviously understood. I guess if there's a desire to create more of a very defined list of folks who wish to be contacted on a regular basis. Again, understanding there's a huge difference between everything that's going on today and what will be going on a week from now or 3 days from now.
Mm-hmm.
So if folks want to be contacted so that they can understand what's going on townwide, they can ask questions, be provided with information about what's going on. So maybe some contact referrals if they need certain services. If they just want to talk, at that point, that should come, and it's sanctioned by the municipality. The reality is that should all be coming out of here, and we can make that happen. That's not an issue.
I guess I would be concerned, Tom. I think that's great, but I'm concerned in you saying that 3 weeks from now that may be just downright impossible for you to do. I hope that's not the case, but it may be, and I don't want to at all negate what you're trying to say, but your capacity, if the shit's hitting the fan, somebody doing outreach probably is better than nobody doing outreach, and I understand that may be a misstatement, but I don't know. I just think I think we have no idea what's ahead of us, and I think honestly that we need to, as much as possible, yes, this is a great idea for you to take from the fire department as long as possible, but if you get to the point where you have to prioritize, something like this is going to drop off your list pretty darn quickly, and I worry about that.
Can I read something from this group that they forwarded me to share with you, because I knew I'd be sharing, and we're kind of jumping into our next select board item, but I think that it's really pertinent to this conversation. So Ruby McAdoo, who is one of the leadership team of this group, and I'm just a liaison. I'm not in any way involved in actually guiding any of their actions. I'm more reporting back to you and then reporting from the select board back to them as much as possible. But they've sent me this. The Putney Mutual Aid Group, Helping Neighbors to Neighbors, has been steadily working producing key resources and tools, namely the volunteer guidelines, a resource document and system for collecting volunteer ability and need that provides for confidentiality, as well as empowers the community to help each other. 2, we've also been working on our organizational structure, which at the moment is a leadership team of Ruby McAdoo, Kathleen Dewich, and Sarah Amor Jones. The larger group will stay active as needed and work on moving key projects forward. The structure of how that looks is still in process. 3, represented on the Putney Mutual Aid team are individuals from the town of Putney, Putney Food Shelf, and Putney Community Cares. We also have our 2 state reps as part of the groups. Specifics around organizations' representation on the group, the individual residents, is a work in progress. 4, there was large overall agreement, though we have not entirely worked out the details, that all organizations represented will give Putney Mutual Aid the opportunity to review any written communications. In part, we want to have clear messaging around the role of Putney Mutual Aid. Also, Putney Mutual Aid will adore this. I don't think she meant adore. I think she meant will give the same courtesy to the collaboration organizations. They've already begun this process with the Putney Food Shelf. And 5, in summary, we are still looking flat out to develop systems and infrastructure that will enable neighbors to support each other in the safest manner possible. Our volunteer guidelines outline the risk involved and group actions into high risk and low risk of exposure and transmission. We want to recognize that people are acting in neighborly ways already and want to communicate those risks clearly to help minimize spread. We also want to support the community in their desire to help each other. These points are being made by one of the leadership councils, so Laura has something to report to the select board. We've appreciated her presence on the team. So I think that the point about this happening already is really important for us to understand. And I understand what Tom is saying, that it's really, you're in kind of a very difficult position. If you approve this, you're approving it in a, from the position of being an emergency management director, and that comes with all kinds of liability. But I worry about us not giving guidance and not having presence. And so where do we find the middle ground on that? How do we continue? How do we give best guidance and have some presence without us as a town compromising ourselves?
I think you used language that we should be very careful to make clear we're not doing. We are not approving this. This is not a town group. At the same time, I personally, and this is strictly a personal statement, am grateful to those people for what they're doing and what their intentions are. But we cannot, I think what Tom is saying clearly, and I agree with them, we cannot sanction this as a town-supported thing. I think that you being a liaison with them gives them feedback. This is obviously a public meeting. I think, if there was the desire, some representative could come and ask questions of the town, or they can listen to this and say, this is what you guys are thinking. But I think that an important difference between us approving it and us recognizing that it's happening and feel that it's a good thing.
I didn't mean to infer that we should approve it.
That's
I was saying I understood why he wouldn't. Did I?
I didn't think you did. You
Okay.
just said, you used that language, so
Okay.
I wanted to clarify.
Okay.
That. You said,
Yeah.
if we approve this, and I think we are not approving this. I mean, with this,
No.
it's not a town entity, so we have no authority to approve or disapprove. We can encourage it or discourage it, and Tom is clearly discouraging it as far as sort of liability is concerned. But I think he also, I'm guessing, recognizes that neighbors are going to want to take care of neighbors, and that we all know that's a good thing. It's just the ability to do that professionally is limited by the fact that they aren't professionals.
Yeah. So how can we, let me think about this carefully. How can we give them best guidance? It's the group has asked a few times for Tom to review, and I've sent it, and I haven't put any pressure because I recognize his time, and I also recognize that he might be uncomfortable. How can we give best guidance so that things don't go, so that we can mitigate whatever we can, and not condone it necessarily. At the same, obviously on a personal level I do, but as a select board member, I know I can't. So,
Laura,
yes.
what I can do is tomorrow, I'd like to think that I would get to it tonight, but I know that's not going to be the case.
You probably shouldn't.
So tomorrow, I'll go through all that. I'm only going to assume that there's likely been some changes in guidance that we're receiving as far as safety concerns, things like that. Between the time everything was put together and now or tomorrow, So I'll look everything over and very simply, just like I'm gonna be doing with Anna, just put across the general safety related guidance. And then plan to keep that updated as, or should things change, and as we need to modify it, going forward.
That would be really helpful. And I think what would be really helpful from you too is to know, I mean, I think in their document, they do a really good job of when things should be directed to you. But if there's anything that's missing from that on when things should be directed to you, inserting that wherever it belongs. Because I recognize from having listened to and worked with them a bit that they really aren't trying to take over your role. They're trying to supplement what we're able to do for the community.
And certainly, believe me, I'm not looking at this as anybody's trying to take anything from me or us. I'm not trying to discourage. I truly understand, appreciate, and respect all the work that these folks are doing and what they want to do, what they're trying to do. Again, from our perspective, we just need, we need to make sure that we're following directives and putting that out to the public. And we just need to make sure everyone is as safe as they can be. That's all. That's all I care about.
Yeah, I think that's all. I think we all feel the same way.
So again, I'll take a look at all that tomorrow. I'll start first thing in the morning, and then we'll get things back with that tomorrow.
Okay. I'm sorry, Josh, go ahead.
I just would add, two things. One, to be clear, as a directive from us, that we are not asking Tom to take responsibility for supervising this or managing it in any way whatsoever. We're asking him if he can offer professional advice on a level that he seems is reasonable. The other thing I would ask of you, Tom, and I think you would do this regardless, is if you see anything there that clearly contradicts, other than sort of the whole concept as I hear and understand, it contradicts some of what your role is. But, if there's anything that clearly is stated in the directives that you've gotten that contradicts what they're trying to do or what they have laid out, you should make that clear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Yep.
Yes, please. No, I think that's perfect. Thank you, Josh, for putting it that way. It definitely isn't our baby, but I'm glad that it's happening on a personal level. I think that it could come in very supportive in bigger ways because of the volunteer names that they're collecting. I think that can be very helpful down the road for all of us. Hopefully not. Hopefully
Laura,
we don't need it. So, yeah.
Laura, just one other thing. I know you folks asked me, and I neglected to mention it. You typically ask for the numbers, if you will, and I neglected to mention it. As of 1:00 this afternoon, throughout the state, there are 123 positive test results.
Holy smokes.
And 8 deaths.
Yep.
And 342 citizens of the state being monitored by the health department.
Oh my gosh.
So, the positive test results, that number has gone up dramatically over the last 24 hours. And the number of people being monitored has increased slightly. But honestly, and obviously, any increase in any of those three numbers, those three categories are very concerning. So,
Tom, do you think that's because I know that that there were a lot of backlog tests, and so do you think that we're seeing this dramatic increase in part due to that?
I think that's a piece of it. I think that's the piece of it. I think the bigger piece of that is the fact that more testing is being done.
Yeah.
So, and as more testing is being done, obviously those numbers are going to increase.
I think that one thing I would make, and this is, I'm not adding this as a professional statement, but anecdotally for me, epidemiologically, that sample size is still remarkably small, and I don't want to negate the fact that it's a very large jump, but it's also still in real numbers comparatively, it's still a very small number. So and not without being able to analyze how many of these tests are backlogged, how many patients are symptomatic, whether they're new, whether they're old, so on and so forth. It would be very hard to draw any sort of a solid, good conclusion from looking at those numbers. And they're very important numbers to have. And in retrospect, we'll be able to look at them and learn from them. But to draw conclusions in the moment, I think epidemiologically is pretty dicey.
Yeah.
And you're right, absolutely.
I'm curious, we hear a lot about the death rate being 1 to 2%. And if we look at 8 deaths, does that mean that it's highly likely that we have at least 800 cases? Is that a flawed logic?
No, I think it's very likely that we have way more cases than we're recognizing at this point. That's almost guaranteed. I think the other thing that really skews that, and again, this is part of the reason why I'm saying sample size is so small, when you look at where those deaths were, the fact that they were almost, or more than half of them are concentrated to one location, that just throws your numbers off completely. So it's really hard to analyze small bits of data like that and have it mean.
Concentrated to one and to a very vulnerable population.
Exactly. I mean, it's all, to the best of my knowledge so far, everyone who has died has been somebody who was at high risk if they contracted this disease. So, and we know that that's the group that's most likely to have fatal outcome from it. But, we have no way with the numbers in front of us to compare that to a bigger sample of who's tested positive, who hasn't tested positive, what their risk factors were. I mean, it's just, these are, doing epidemiology on something like this is really complicated.
And Laura, just to follow up with what Josh just mentioned, and nothing, Josh, obviously you just haven't had the information yet. The reality is there are confirmed deaths that of folks that were not within the high risk categories.
Within Vermont?
I can't say that. I honestly don't know. I know in other parts of the country that is the case now.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you 100%, Tom. I'm just saying the Vermont ones. I mean, we're aware that five of them came out of a home in Burlington.
I'm sorry. I misunderstood where you were coming from there. That's fine.
Yeah,
That's all.
no, I'm strictly talking about the Vermont numbers. No, the nationwide numbers are very different. There's a lot of valuable information in the nationwide numbers. Right. Still, the sample size is relatively small, but no, I totally agree with you. I am in no way implying that this is not high risk for absolutely everybody involved. But
no, I wasn't suggesting that for a moment.
Yeah. Okay. In the state of Vermont, what we have to, again, my understanding is that 6 of those patients, 5 were all from one facility. Another one was a very elderly gentleman. Those numbers all make sense based on what we've been learning. Nationwide, very different game, and statewide, we can rest assured that there will be cases that will not fall into that group that we would assume is high risk, and hopefully those are limited, and statistically they're very limited, but that doesn't make it any less real when it's you or someone you know or love that has it and happens to be 35 years old.
Tom, out of curiosity, do we know how many of these positive tests were in Windham County?
Without looking at the map off the top of my head, no. And at least as public officials, what we need to be aware of too is that map that everybody has become accustomed to is not necessarily being updated
It's not.
every day. And it just simply comes down to that the folks up north just don't have the manpower to commit to that. So that map that everybody sees may not be 100% accurate.
It's not.
Well, we're also a bordering county to 2 other states, so very, very closely. So,
Yeah.
But Tom, can I ask a
But
question?
without looking at that map, I wouldn't be able to tell.
David, you were gonna.
Tom, yeah, one of the things that you said was that each positive test case gets followed up on very closely. And the information that they're gathering from that, is that guiding us in how we need to conduct ourselves to keep ourselves safe any more than the guidelines that they sent down to us to protect us by not getting this, by not contacting people? What are they learning? Like Josh says, it's a small sample size, but they must be getting new information all the time. It isn't just travelers, it's community contagion. Now, what else? What else are they learning from that that's helping you? That will help out.
Honestly, nothing. Again, the guidance has been, is presently, and as far as I know, unless this virus begins to mutate itself, and there are a lot of changes in presentations and numbers. The way we're conducting business now, the way we're protecting ourselves today is it.
I think also, David, that would fall very tightly under privacy laws. So, I mean, for example, I'm guessing when they're tracking possible contacts, they can't say you were in contact with David Babbitt on, March 12th and he tested positive. Not that I'm just using a scenario. What they can say, I think that the way it drives the process is that they then use that to reinforce that sort of public understanding. I mean, all of this is voluntary still. So, quarantine is voluntary. So if they're tracking this and seeing who the contacts are, they are presumably going to those contacts and saying, you have potentially been in contact with someone who was potentially infected, and we are asking that you self-quarantine.
Right.
Yeah.
That's about as far as it goes. So
The reason I asked that question is it seems like the numbers coming out of New York show that the volunteer system isn't working, and that the curve is really steep. And
The volunteer system of quarantine? I'm sorry.
That would support us to have it not be voluntary, and that information released at least to someone like Tom, so it could help us control this.
And David, unfortunately, you're absolutely correct. In other places, it's pretty well proven that if people don't comply with the guidance and the directives that are given, this is going to spread. That not complying is not helping anybody. So that's why we're pleading and pleading and pleading for everybody, all the citizens, do what's right, do what's being asked of us, and that's the only way we're going to stop this. That's the only way that we're going to level out the curve. If people choose not to do this, then the curve's going to continue upward. There is no enforcement that's going to take place. The governor of this state and other states have said that very plainly. This is all the honor system, if you will. It's all voluntary compliance with the true hope that people understand and they get it and they do what's expected of them.
And
even if I know, based upon different email chains that I'm attached to, I know there are groups of folks out there who are actually public officials that are questioning the governor's his legal abilities to issue these directives that he's issuing. And that's pretty disheartening. That's very disheartening for public officials to begin to question, because that means there's a shift in understanding of doing what's right to becoming political and argumentative and potentially defiant. And that's not going to help anybody. So David, again, the answer to your question is, unless martial law is instituted, then honestly, the resources do not exist for that to happen in a broad scope. Even if somebody wanted to enact that, for that to occur, the resources aren't there. So, and to threaten such a thing, that's not going to do any good either. So, again, everybody at every level is just simply asking for voluntary compliance, and that is the only thing that's going to stop this.
And I would guess, David, we're sort of getting off on a tangent, but I would guess that our curve probably follows relatively closely New York's curve at some stage. They just happen to be talking, for every one person we have, they're talking 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, whatever it might be. And we might be a week behind them or 10 days behind them or whatever it might be. But that curve's going to be predictable until implemented policies are being followed. And in New York, I mean, you look at the pictures of New York City, it's quieter than I've ever seen it, that's for sure. I mean, there are people who are not paying attention, but it's a whole lot different than it was 10 days ago. That's no question about that. So I think that those curves are what they are. The majority of the curves are going to be based on population density and transmissibility of the virus. So it's going to show up, there are going to be similar tracks sort of regardless if the same policies are being implemented. Just raw numbers are very different.
All right, so everybody stay home, please.
I think Tom's right. I agree with Tom.
Yeah.
That we need to,
Lesson.
yeah.
And not just to protect yourselves and your loved ones, but also to protect
Other
our
people.
first responders and the people that have to go out. I'm one of those people. I support folks that that very likely would not survive without the system that we have supporting them. And so please do it to protect all of us that are trying to do the work to support others. Think of it like a snowstorm. You don't go out to protect the other people that do have to go out. Stay off the roads. But thank you, Tom. That was really helpful.
Yeah.
Sobering.
Very sobering. And we are going to go into the select board report on action. And I think that I have pretty thoroughly discussed what I've been doing on my end to communicate with the mutual aid group and communicate back to you all. And I just want to reiterate, Tom, that everything we're doing or they're doing, I shouldn't say we because it's not me, it's them. Everything they're doing from what I see is from a really respectful stance of the work that you have to do. And any guidance that you can give would be greatly appreciated. We want to make sure that everybody in this town is staying as safe as possible.
Okay, again, reviewing all that information and getting back, that's my priority for tomorrow morning. So.
I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Karen, it looked like Karen, I know you're sort of turned sideways. It sounded like Karen might have something to add.
No, I agreed with Tom, especially following the directive of the governor.
Yeah.
More people will stay safe, and I appreciate everybody's efforts as well, you know, from a municipal standpoint and the volunteers. I think everybody is coming together, but it's about the timing, and you know, when that's gonna happen, we don't know. And we know at some point too, Tom, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you know, the Emergency Operations Center will be, you know, up and running, you know, so we need to stay safe and healthy so we can man that center with the first responders, if that comes down to it.
Right.
All right, well, do you have anything else for us, Tom?
I don't unless anybody has any other questions.
No, I don't.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
Tom.
much. All right, I feel like we should all take a moment of Zen. Just do a little deep breathing.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands, sanitize. Don't breathe on anyone you know.
6 feet apart.
6 feet apart. We are practicing social distancing in this space as well as outside of this space as a select board and town governance. So hopefully we're setting a good example for all the folks out there. So our next item was select board report on action to date. Josh, do you want to report out anything you might have?
I don't really have anything. I met with Tom today for about an hour and just talked about a lot of the stuff we're talking about, a lot of practical things. You know, I mean, as we all have recognized and are aware, you know, our ability to support Tom is mostly through our verbal support and or if and when the time comes, our financial support as a town. But, you know, we are very much depending on him and his folks to do the job they do. The other thing I would say is I'm definitely aware that the educational institutions, Putney School and Landmark, are working very closely with Tom. That's one thing that we've certainly talked about that in the last week, but hasn't come up today. But they're very much working to do what Tom wants them to, do what the state wants them to, and doing what they all know and think is best. So I just want to reiterate that they are definitely being good neighbors.
Good.
David?
I also took about an hour today and talked to Tom and asked a bunch of questions, and all of the things that I asked were addressed tonight here in this meeting. So, and other than that, I'm personally closing my business tomorrow afternoon, and you know, gonna fire up the chainsaw, go out in the woods, stay away from everybody. I don't have anything else.
Yeah.
Well, I'll help in any way that I can. You hear that, Tom?
I
I
don't.
think he's gone.
I think he's
Yeah.
gone. Yeah.
He left us.
Well, I just want to say, human to human, I recognize how hard it is for you to close your business, David, and really appreciate the sacrifice for all of us.
Oh no, there was a couple things. I got a website for filing for unemployment. We probably already have that information, and a couple of 1-877 phone numbers people can call who don't have a website, and put that out too.
I think those are in our latest.
They've been out there.
Yeah, Karen's definitely gotten them out there. I think they're up on our website as well, possibly, at least through the public health notices.
I'm sorry. Did anybody hear what happened with the Congress, with the Senate and the House? Did they approve the bill for the
I
aid
haven't
package? Do
yet.
you know?
No.
I don't know whether it's completed or not. I would say, sort of adding to what David said, that people should, the number of resources and the variability of who those resources are going to be available to seems like it's going to be very broad. So anybody who runs a business, works for a business, is independent, anything, I strongly encourage people to just explore possible financial avenues. I know going through the state for things like that is a pain in the neck, but if you're unemployed, get in touch with the Department of Labor, because there's a huge amount of stuff going on to support whether you're a small business or an individual, an employee or an employer, or so on and so forth. There's a lot going on. So I think it's well worth reaching out to those folks if you are in a circumstance that you need it.
Yeah, agreed. That's an excellent point, Josh. And Karen's been doing a really good job of putting that messaging out in the community. And I've been trying to amplify it as well. And I think that's all we can do at this point, is to support people in getting the information.
Yeah.
So, okay. So if we're comfortable moving on, we are now on unemployment for employees. Karen, you wanted to speak to this?
Yeah, so David, you did mention the website on the Department of Labor. We do have 3 employees right now that are not working. 2 are high risk, and the other one was not enough work at the office. So we've directed them to go ahead and apply for the unemployment. We haven't seen anything come down from the state. As far as I know, and this is changing on a daily basis as well, right now it was 60% of compensation, and it was supposed to be right away, so there's no waiting period, but these people have been out of work for at least a week now. So, and we haven't seen anything come down from the state. So we're monitoring that, and we're hoping that it'll be quick. But other than that, there's information on the website. And again, for the people in the community, if you're out of work, please apply. Because the other thing too is, once the stimulus package is passed, and FEMA now, I just got information on FEMA, we should be tracking all of this stuff in the community. So the businesses that are impacted, there's websites out there. I encourage everybody to look at our website and utilize the information that is out there to help you. Because it's gonna come back around in the end, and we don't know how large this is yet. And it's a little scary, but any financial impacts, you know, we'll be looking to recoup some of that money.
I think the other thing that I have heard several times, and I don't know what the reality is, but seems to be the case, is that all of this stuff is going to be first come, first served, because that's the only way they can do it. And those lists are adding up quickly. So I think the sooner people at least get their name on a list,
Yes.
the more likely they are to get a response sooner. So I would encourage people to do that in as timely a fashion as they're able.
Yeah. Okay, so now we are on interest notice for taxes and sewer water delinquencies.
Okay, so thinking about the future, I downloaded some information from VLCT. Josh, I don't know if you got it because it bounced back, but go ahead.
Between yesterday and today, my inbox got overwhelmed, and so I gotta sort that out tonight, so I don't have it, but that's okay.
So what I learned today, from the information from VLCT. So penalty and interest, if a town had voted to assess interest and penalties, we cannot waive that, Josh, as a board.
No kidding. Okay.
So we still have to apply interest and penalty, but residents could potentially abate it. They would have to go.
They could request an abatement.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So at this point, moving forward, it appears we're still going to be sending out interest notices and penalty notices. We do have water and sewer. The quarter ends the end of March. So 30 days from the billing, if somebody's not paid, we will have to assess a penalty.
With our notice that goes out, can we, and you know, obviously, this is spitballing, is it possible to attach a notice that, you know, if this is a hardship, you can apply for abatement?
I believe it's already printed on the bills.
You think so? Okay.
Yes, so it's printed on the bill that people can abate.
Okay.
And there's certain reasons to abate as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So my thought is to see what happens, see what the overall number is, and then discuss it.
Okay.
I think that one of the reasons Karen addressed that to me when she was talking about it was because she and I had quite a long discussion about this. I think that I'm guessing I share the opinion that we would love to be able to not include penalties and interest during this time of hardship for people, but apparently statutorily that's not possible. And Karen, I don't know whether you can add that to that statement that goes out with stuff, just to make it clear to people that we're not doing this out of spite or anything else. It's just that we're required to.
Correct.
But the abatement is important. But we also obviously don't want to penalize people any more than we have to. So that abatement is really the only route they have from the sense of it.
Right.
But we could send a notice that says something like, we recognize that these are extremely difficult times and, you know, unfortunately our hands are tied in this approach. And if you are unable to meet this due to hardship, please reach out to the office to discuss abatement.
Yeah. No, and I think the other thing, which we've certainly talked about in general about tax sale, is that especially given interest and penalties will still accrue, you know, we don't, because Karen and I talked a little bit about the fact that organization for the tax sale needs to start happening, not right away, but relatively soon. You know, most of those folks that we're talking about, or all of them, are at least 2 years in arrears if we're talking about tax sale. But we also don't want to, by delaying, well, again, we can't do this, but if we were to delay collection, we are in some ways adding to the scale of the burden that's placed on those people. So it's a tricky spot to be.
It is really tricky.
And talking about tax sales, we can temporarily delay it. So our fiscal year ends end of June, and then we have that 30 days where we can still collect money for that fiscal year that we're closing out. So the timing on a tax sale is critical. We right now, for delinquent taxes, are at $205,361.87. And approximately, what was the number, Alyssa, for
This year?
tax sale on the spreadsheet? Do you recall?
I can get it real quick.
Alright. It was over 100,000, but I think.
Yeah, both of those, sort of historically speaking, those are both big numbers. So
Right.
we need to be
Right.
paying attention to that.
And
Because
not- yeah.
we don't want to stress out and put people in a worse position.
The other thing too is with income taxes being delayed till July 15th, we will not see a tax rate until after that date. And the consolidated school district has not voted on a budget. And we don't know when that's gonna happen. So, that being said, we're gonna have to bring in as much revenue as much as we can. Because right now, I feel comfortable with what we have for operating. But if we are delayed in getting our tax bills out, we may have to look to borrow money. And I can't tell that yet until we have some more details of what's gonna happen.
I'm guessing, and we'll have to look to the state for guidance on this, but I'm guessing that they will be trying to figure out how to manage that because it's going to affect virtually every town in the state.
Correct.
The other thing that we'll have to explore is the legalities of sending out essentially a municipal tax bill to be followed by the educational
Separately.
tax bill, or a municipal bill with an estimated educational, or something. We're gonna need that. We're gonna need that money coming in a timely fashion, because we're fine now, but come August 15th, if we're not having anything coming in, that's going to be a real problem for us. So
Right.
we're going to have to lean on the state for guidance on that. But I just so we all know, it's on the burner.
107, all right. So Alyssa just informed me that for the tax sale, we're looking at $107,000. Now, a few of those will go to tax sale, but our hope is that, we can collect some of it. I'm being optimistic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you did well at that last year at this time. So, this is going to be a more complicated time for people, no question. But, I think you were both thorough and fair in how you approached it last year, and it seemed to be pretty effective. So,
Thank you. And we'll see what the banks do too. If a lot of people have taxes escrowed, so if the banks are tight, money's not moving, I'm not sure how that might work.
It's a whole new world.
I don't think they have the legal ability to delay that. So I'm guessing that that's high on their priority list. But of course, that doesn't mean it'll happen.
Well, that would save us, Josh. Because a
I suppose
lot
that's true.
of tax payments come through escrow.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
But if mortgages are deferred for 3 months,
Yeah, that's a good point too.
sorry.
You'll get ours because ours isn't through escrow. So
But we'll see what happens. We just gotta, one day at a time, and, I'm trying to think ahead and be reasonable and,
And I think that, we're likely to encounter goodwill from those who are able, if we can come up with some sort of, again, within legal realm,
right.
with some sort of estimated tax, and hey, even if we had to, we could put out a letter to all the taxpayers and say, hey, if you could make a payment towards your taxes, that would be helpful to us. And I'm guessing we would get some response to that.
Right.
Yep.
Josh, in all your years on Selectboard, have you ever faced anything like this before?
No, definitely not. No, I mean, no, the most complicated it's ever been for us is just that the education tax sometimes, and this I think happened last year as much as it ever.
Yes.
That number is very late in coming, and it just pushes us to the limit of getting those notices out. But we may just have to take a different tack on it this year. So.
All right. Well, I have faith that Karen can pull us through.
With help.
With help, of course. You have great help.
David told me he would willing to lend us the money if we need it.
Sure, 20%. 20%. You got it. How much do you need? I'll write you a check.
Yeah.
I heard that, David.
It's on video.
On tape.
Yeah.
That's been recorded, David.
That's not, I'm not worried.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay. So future purchases, fire engine and highway department truck.
So given our current status and not knowing, I wanted to put this out on the table for the select board to think about, but, so we have two major purchases. Tom, I have advised Tom and Brian to move ahead with bids for the new fire engine and the dump truck. I have a meeting with Vermont Municipal Bond Bank tomorrow, virtually, and so I'm going to continue that because the summer awards will be coming out. But the board really needs to consider whether we want to postpone any major purchases at this time, with not knowing what the financial future is going to look like.
How does that work, Josh? The town voted on that. What can we actually do?
It's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think that these circumstances are such that we could probably, well, I don't know. That would be a legal question. I don't know. I mean, typically, these are binding articles. So it was approved. Are we bound to spend that money in a certain time period? I'm not 100% sure. Karen and I also talked about this the other day. A couple concerns if we put it off, as we, one of the reasons we were interested in doing the fire truck sooner rather than later is because it saves us money. So if we put it off, it's going to cost us more. The flip side of that is that with the bond bank anyway, the way things are, it's very likely that we'll get an even more favorable interest rate than we were talking about to start with. So, I don't know. That would be a question for Larry, whether we have, or for VLCT probably, whether we have leeway to do something different on that. The other thing that my personal feeling would be, yes, going ahead might create a little bit of a hardship for us in the short run, but these are both long-term purchases. And, as all-consuming as this pandemic is right now, it too shall pass.
Right.
We don't know how long it will be, but when we're looking at 5 and/or 10-year loans, it's a relatively small percentage of time that this is likely to be a problem for us. Hard to say.
So if we have, I'm sorry.
That's
Go ahead.
okay. I'm not a lawyer, but the way that it was written, I don't believe that we were ordered to do this. The town gave us permission to do it.
I think I would agree.
That
Yeah.
said, I am fully supportive of us continuing to go forward because of especially with the fire truck, because of the concerns around trade-in value and cost and all of the things that we have so thoroughly discussed so many times, and the fact that it's an essential piece of equipment, and looking at the greater long-term picture, feels like it would be remiss of us not to, but yeah, that's just where I'm at.
So the question I had was about the timing of finding out about the bond bank and how, if we could put that off at all until we saw where the town was after August, and see how people were making payments on their taxes if hardships had hit them, so that we were in a bad state. How long do we have to decide about buying the truck or the fire truck or the other truck? It all has to happen within the year?
So David, just to let you,
Do we buy ourselves some time to assess the situation better?
so the payments, David, on the fire truck and the dump truck, we wouldn't see that until fiscal year 22.
Yeah, it's out there for us as far as actually making the payments.
But the process of deciding whether or not we actually do it still.
Right.
It's a good question. I mean, that's a bond bank the highway truck is just a simple loan from a bank, so that's not really an issue for us. But the bond bank question, Karen, I don't know, what we wouldn't want to do is go through all the steps to try and borrow from the bond bank and then delay it if that meant we had to go through all those steps again, because it's a pain in the neck.
Yeah, I would not do that.
Well, and that would be a good question to ask of the bond bank person tomorrow is, can we do all this paperwork and then shelve it till the next round? Or once we've started the process in any given round, are we committed to that round?
I will ask that question tomorrow because it's in my head. I
Okay.
know there's a winter round as well.
Right, yeah,
And we did the spring round for the gravel pit.
right.
So,
Could even be shelved.
yeah, we'll have to discuss that, but I will get clarity on that question.
I mean, that's also a question for if we're putting the trucks out to bid. That would be a question for manufacturers also. When do they need a bond secured in order to be assured that they're going to get payment? And I'm not sure what that, if they're not going to, if we know who we want to go with for a contract, for example, but we put it off till spring, that means that we don't get our truck till 7 months later or whatever that is. Is that a concern for us both as far as price and function is concerned? And I think price-wise, yes, probably it's a little bit of a concern. Functionally, I'm guessing it doesn't make a huge difference, but.
Can
Doesn't
I-
make a
Yeah.
difference in trade-in value as well.
Right.
Exactly, yeah.
So, what's gonna happen with the highway equipment is Brian's already speaking to vendors, and come July, he'll have a price, and then they gotta build the truck and the body, and he probably won't see delivery until September. Now again, that payment won't be due until fiscal year 22, the first payment. And it would be about $40,000.
Well, it sounds like we need more information.
So if we
Yeah,
wanted,
yeah,
at least,
Go ahead, Dave.
I say, so if we wanted to postpone the highway truck to see where we were at, could we do that as long as we did it within this next fiscal year because we voted to do it? How much, do we have any leeway? Could we put out bids later than he is now, not decide in July and then not be committed then, but be committed 6 months later?
Well, 6 months
Or is it-
later would put you right in the middle of winter, and that wouldn't be good for Brian.
Okay,
So the timing of the truck is critical. So you're either gonna put it off the whole year, or you don't put it off.
Well, I mean, yes and no. I mean, we have a truck already.
Yes,
So,
yep,
the risk of that, as we've talked about the risk overall with using, it would be really unfortunate if, we got to 10 years and 4 months and we blew an engine,
Right.
but that's we take every day. So, I think that's statistically a very slim risk, but I think it's one I mean, I think Karen going ahead and having the guys at least have the bids in hand it is useful to us.
Yes.
And then we have to keep looking at it as those numbers come through.
Okay.
All right. The quarterly financial reports, financial outlook for future.
So I sent you quarterly reports. I'm not concerned about the highway department. And the library looks good. Water and sewer look good. General funds is fairly good. There's, you know, the pool and the fire department are about, I think they're almost 80%. So the pool is at 88.46. And then the fire department is at 78.37, which is not bad. Overall, I think we're still in pretty good shape. So I'm not concerned at this point. And I have spoken to both departments and reminded them of budgets, and they're well aware of them. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we'll see what happens in the next few months.
Any questions, guys?
No.
Okay.
I do have one question for the board though. Sorry, Laura,
That's okay.
because I just spoke to Emily about this.
Mm-hmm.
So the board voted on the library being stained, the building.
Mm-hmm.
And Mo Momini is looking to do it end of April, early May. So one single coat was approximately $13,500. 2 coats is $18,000. So I reminded Emily, I said, if you can get away with 1 coat, that would probably be best at this time. And seeing as everything is like all non-essential businesses or stay at home at this point, end of April, early May, we won't know where we're at. So I just wanted to bring that up because it is like on a schedule now to do the library.
I remember we discussed this exhaustively too. And can't quite remember whether or not there was huge advice on the difference between putting 1 coat and 2 coats. No.
I mean, I think that, you know, sort of needless to say, 2 coats is better. You know, I think also if you just look at the economics of that, you know, you're getting twice as much material put on the building for only 50% more than it costs you to put 1. And part of that is the fact that the first coat just takes more work and more material.
A lot of bleach.
How much do we have in the budget for it, Karen? We have the full amount in the budget?
Well, it's in the undesignated fund, which has
It
about,
is.
yeah, about $18,000.
I'm
I'm a little nervous about spending a lot of money, not knowing what the future is right now.
Remind me, I think, Josh, that you were really up on this. 2 coats, how much more longevity does it give it? Is it?
That I would have to, you know, I mean, given, I just noticed the other day how clearly in need of staining the library is. I mean, it doesn't look bad, but it looks like it needs stain, definitely. I would have to defer to Mo on that, and I think Mo would give us a clear and honest answer. You know, you could just say, would we be crazy to put on just 1 coat now? And if he says yes, then we probably listen to that. If he says, I mean, the fact is that just getting one coat again on it, one coat is going to take a lot of material just because you're covering something that really has very little material on it.
Mm-hmm.
That second coat is what will give you the longevity, but I don't know what that difference would be.
Okay. David, did you have something?
I just was going to mention that part of our discussion, I remember, was deferring to mow and also looking at the different sides of the building, because sun exposure has a lot to do with how it wears off.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe would have been willing to look at it and say, the truth is the back two sides really don't need two coats in the front two. So,
You're reminding me.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. We went down this road. Oh.
For that. And I know from staying in my house for years and years and years and getting sick of it, I finally painted it. So, not that we're going to do that there, but the front side of my house that faces south, I would put 3 or 4 coats on, and the back side, I would go over in a quarter of the time, and it was just fine, and it looked just fine every year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Maybe
I'm
that's
sure he
the
figured
coats.
that into his bid, and I think we should definitely protect it whatever way it needs to be.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think, again, we could ask him, we could say, what do you think, Mo, of putting 2 coats on the south side and 1 on the rest? And,
Right.
And that may be reflected, as David said, that may have already been taken into account on the 18 for the second coat. I don't know how we looked at that, but
I'll get clarification on that again.
yeah. But I think that experience tells me in general, not town experience, but we don't want to head down the road of deferred maintenance. We're better off spending that money now than we are putting it off longer and having to spend 25 to do it next year.
Right.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Okay. Town managers report, Windham County Sheriff report.
Oh man, look at all this.
Talk fast.
All right, so Windham County Sheriff's report, I spoke to Sheriff Anderson. He has reassured us that we will have deputies. If it's not our regular deputy, it may be someone else, but we will have coverage, so that made me feel good. The water meter reading is started this week. We're having Joe also hand out the Don't Flush It Volume 1 brochure, which right now it's very important that no disinfecting wipes be flushed, no paper towels. So all the users on the system will get the brochure. There's also a health notice for all users. The state has mandated that all wastewater treatment plants to chlorinate the water. So that notice is being handed out to every user as well. I know I emailed the select board on that, so you can review that.
And that's COVID related and temporary,
is.
correct?
It's a temporary
yeah.
order right now, and when the state lifts it, we'll stop the chlorination. So the chlorination is on a very low dose at the moment, and Simon's Operations Services they're taking directive from the state of Vermont on this. So I'm in contact with Chris Hayes. We had a 2-hour conversation on Saturday. I'm reassured and I'm very confident that they have this handled. He has stated that, they watch for bacteria, any type of contamination. They're testing all the time, so our system is safe. So people, if anyone has a question, they can call the town hall and we can get them answers. But for right now, it's on a low dose of chlorine.
And I just want to add that that's a precautionary measure. There has been no evidence linking COVID to water treatment plants at this point.
No.
No, and I mean, Karen is saying this, but I just want to make it perfectly clear that we chlorinate at a low level all the time. So that's not something different for us. We just, the chlorination level is based on those test results regularly.
Right.
So they follow testing, chlorinate appropriately. Essentially what the state, from what I could decipher from it, essentially what they're saying is shock the system a little bit with chlorine, because just so we're not taking a chance. But
Right.
but it's not
Yeah.
it's not in protocol for us that we would be doing that. It's just the volume of chlorination that we would be using
Right.
at this time.
It's a mandated level.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's merely an abundance of precaution.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're in good shape there. Let's see what else. Oh, office and highway department hours. Right now, the highway department is still on a 40-hour week, and the office is on a 4-day schedule, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. As things shift, like Tom said they will, and the governor, there is a stay-at-home executive order right now for the state of Vermont. Some people are essential workers, which transportation and obviously keeping business going and keeping people informed. We are still here. That may change. So as it changes, we'll keep everybody posted. Let me see. The lister's office has a deadline, just so the select board knows. The grand list has to be lodged by April 1st. It's not the final grand list. It's the first lodging. And they have gone out and done all their site visits with the property owners that allowed them to go into their homes. Otherwise, they measured, the buildings, and they were just outdoors doing the site visits. So that's all completed. So now they have to get all the information into the system before April 1st in order to lodge that first grand list. The final grand list will be lodged in June. So they're busy right now, Doug and Jordy. So the business survey, I've been working with the Business Alliance Group, Lisa Papazian and Mike at the G Store. That's almost ready to go out to the public to get information and try to help some of the businesses that have been impacted here in Putney. So we're kind of reaching out, seeing what they offer for services, if it's takeout, what do they take for payments, that kind of stuff. We've also created a local resources survey, and we're going to work with the farmers market and get that survey. It's just about ready to post onto social media, and we're reaching out to the community to see what local products we have. We know there's farmers, there's meat producers out there, people with eggs and chickens and meat. So we're trying to consolidate what we have in the community so people, instead of traveling into Brattleboro, they might be able to get product right here in Putney. And it's going to help these people that are struggling right now because they're losing income because their eggs are not going to the Putney diner. So it's another resource that we're trying to coordinate. And I'm really thankful for the people out there that are, taking a stand and helping the community and other people. I think it's great.
Yeah. I'm really thankful for you, Karen, for having pulled all this together, because Karen, in her spare time, has been doing all of this. And
I have a good support group here in the office.
she has an amazing support group.
And I think,
That's excellent. Will all of this go up on the website when it's...
It will.
Fantastic.
And I'm hoping it's going to happen before Friday.
Fantastic.
Because it's so close to being there.
Yeah.
And just to share with everybody, I tried to stay away from Google Docs, but all these people that use it, now I'm teaching myself, the forms, the docs, and I have to be truthful, it's a little bit easier when you're trying to work together on a document. So
So proud of you. It's great collaborative work.
you can teach an old dog new tricks, David.
But don't ever call her an old dog.
My phone rang a lot that day.
Oh.
Don't let anybody tell you you're untrainable, David.
Oh, no, nobody tell me anything. That's the problem.
I wanted to just bring up one thing related to the lodging of the grand list, and that is the reason that there's an initial lodging that's basically an estimate, but then there's the grievance period.
Correct.
Grievances may be complicated for us given the circumstances. I mean, that all depends on how timing plays out, but that could be a sticking point for us, so we should just be aware of that.
Can I add, Josh, that usually a grievance, the listers set up, one appointment at a time. So,
Right.
It may be 4 people in the room, but you're right, we'll have to look at that, because right now, the town hall is closed to the public. But,
Right.
and at this time, we've really stopped all visitors, pretty much. It's just employees, Brian comes in, but Joe comes in, and Tom will stop in here, but pretty much the public, not so much.
Well, I know we had a very small number of grievances last year, so hopefully that trend continues, and that's attributed largely to the fact that the listers have been so effective in their work. So hopefully that continues, but
Yeah.
but that could be a little bit of an issue for us.
Does grievance have to be done in person? Can it be?
It might be able to do it over the phone, or Skype, or Zoom. We might be able to set that up, Laura, for them.
Yeah, be worth thinking about in advance before it comes up.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Jordy. They've been really out straight, Jordy and Doug.
Yeah.
And you have on here business as usual to the best possible extent. So.
It is business. We
Yeah.
gotta continue conducting business,
Yep.
so.
All right. We're moving on to warrants.
So I'll make a motion that we approve and execute warrants as presented upon completion of review.
And I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Oops, sorry.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
discussion
signing.
would be, how are we going to do this without David and I in the room?
Okay.
Yeah, wondering that myself.
So
I have
what we,
correction. Hang on.
Oh, is this the starred one? Because I
Yes.
actually.
Yes.
So, there are exceptions to how we process payroll and other bills.
Yep.
And it looks like the second exception is the one that
Yes.
Karen is giving us guidance towards. The second exception allows the select board to authorize one or more members to review and approve orders on behalf of the entire board. A vote to give
So
such.
And seconded.
Okay. Well, we have to, it has to be, we have to move to a point, I would assume in this case it's me, because I'm actually sitting here. So Laura Chapman of the legislative body members to approve and sign orders for the warrants,
so moved.
for this time period. Okay.
And seconded.
Okay.
Did you get that, Alyssa?
I'm trying.
I can give you the language too. It's,
Yeah, can I have that one?
yes.
I'll just add it.
I don't want to, it's okay later. So, and then I think that, so it's been moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
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 And then I don't think we actually finished the motion on the warrants. So we did a
You just
motion
have to- you just
in a
have to
motion.
approve it.
So can we all, it's been moved and seconded for the warrants. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Payroll warrant dated March 27th, 2020 in the amount of $17,604.31.
Don't blow it, Laura.
I'm trying. No pressure, right? Thanks, Josh.
Hold it up to the screen so you read it.
Yeah, right here. Can you read that?
It's working.
Okay. I'm gonna try and find all the things that you would ask questions about and ask questions about them.
Accounts payable dated March 14th through March 27, 2020 in the amount of $66,544.23. So it's kind of large because we have the VLCT passive, which is like $20,000 plus in there.
And Simon Operation Services
Yeah.
is another 10,001.
What was the People's Bank, Alyssa?
The US Bank?
5,580.
Yeah, what is
In
that?
this one?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, where did that come from?
What?
Firematic Supply Company, is that for?
That's for Tom.
Is it the credit card here? No, it wasn't that.
No,
much.
it's $5,500 and I didn't see no like loan payment.
Oh, that's the taxes.
The payroll
Payroll
taxes?
taxes.
All right, okay.
That was the payroll taxes, did you catch
Phew,
that?
you had me confused.
So the fire tech was two fire jacket and fire pants.
Wow, they're expensive.
They're very expensive.
Oh, smokes. And we paid the Windham County Sheriffs, which
Yes.
adds a little bit. You guys, I'm doing it.
It's okay.
Right.
Um, I was just wondering if we could do this going forward, if we could have, but it doesn't look like we can.
Well, the thing is, and Laura, we talked about this because you asked whether or not you had to be here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think we need one select board member,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll decide if we go virtual. You know, I mean, we have BCTV here tonight,
Mm-hmm.
but,
This is their last night with us
We can help you.
for now.
okay.
Yeah.
So we can record and then we can upload to you. All right. So we're still gonna need a select board member here to be present
Mm-hmm.
and at least get one signature on warrants.
Yeah. Okay.
Do they have to now sign, or is hers the nominee?
I would prefer, because the liquor licenses have to be signed off on Josh and David as well.
Yeah.
When you come down, you can also sign the warrant.
I didn't lick them.
You didn't lick what?
Warrants. The warrants.
Yeah, but I might tomorrow.
But she might tomorrow.
Okay.
Well,
So just,
something for me, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give you my stamp.
Yeah.
we can get you a stamp.
Okay, so other business.
Oh, we have an executive session.
We have an executive session. Oh, okay.
And Josh, select board members, at this point, I don't believe we're gonna have a decision.
Okay.
I don't think so, no.
No.
Okay. So that probably means you can,
Oh, so
So,
you have to decide, you have to vote to go in.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we enter
are you still?
into enter executive.
And I second that.
Can you read why we're going into executive session, please? It's number 1 on that handout I gave you, right here. I sent it to them too.
Okay. Title I VSA 313, the appointment or employment or evaluation of a public officer or employee, provided that the public body shall make a final decision to hire or appoint a public official or employee in an open meeting and shall explain the reasons for its final decision during the open meeting. But no decision is going to be made at this time.
Correct.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay.
And you'll be inviting Karen to join
And
us.
we'll be inviting Karen to join us.